Before you hit play, do me one favor. Subscribe. Not for me, for you. Because once you hear what I'm about to tell you, you'll want proof that someone else knows. That you're not the only one carrying this. My name is irrelevant. My rank doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that I spent 11 months at Groom Lake, Area 51, if you prefer the Hollywood name, and I left with questions that turned into nightmares. I was assigned to the Deep Archive Division in March of last year. Intelligence background. Top secret clearance since I was 23, psychological evaluations clean. I'd handled classified material before. Drone strike footage. Black site interrogation logs. Budget documents for weapons programs that don't officially exist. I thought I'd seen the worst of what we hide. I was assigned to Sublevel 7. My job was simple. Catalog, digitize, and reclassify documents dating back to 1947. Paperwork. A desk job in the most secure military installation on Earth. The first 3 weeks were exactly that. Boring. I sat in a windowless office with concrete walls, fluorescent lights that buzz like dying insects, and boxes. Thousands of boxes. Manila folders yellowed with age. Typewritten reports on paper, so brittle it crumbled if you turned the pages too fast. Most of it was mundane. Supply chain records. Personnel transfers. Maintenance logs or aircraft that had been decommissioned decades ago. But some files were different. They had no dates, no signatures, no departmental stamps, just designation codes. S-Class, R-Type, Ophidian Protocol. I asked my supervisor, Lieutenant Colonel Merrick, what those terms meant. He looked at me for a long time. His jaw worked like he was chewing something bitter. Catalog them, he said. Don't read them. That's when I knew. You don't tell someone not to read something unless it matters. I waited until my 4th week. Late shift. I was alone in the archive room. Just me, the hum of ventilation, and the smell of old paper and dust. I opened an S-Class file. The first page was a medical report dated November 1952. No location. No patient name. Just a designation. Subject S7. The description made my skin tighten. Bipedal, approximately 6 feet 4 inches in height. Scales present across 87% of dermis. Musculature inconsistent with mammalian physiology. No external ears. Nictitating membrane observed over ocular organs. Core body temperature fluctuates between 78 degrees Fahrenheit and 104 degrees Fahrenheit, depending on environment. Subject displays advanced problem-solving capability and nonverbal communication with other S-Class entities. Linguistic analysis suggests symbolic cognition. I read it twice. Then I turned the page. Photographs. Black and white. Grainy. But clear enough. A humanoid figure strapped to an examination table. Its body was lean, covered in overlapping scales that caught the light like oil on water. The head was elongated, angular. The eyes were large, slitted vertically, and even in the photograph they seemed to track the camera. Its hands had 4 fingers, each tipped with a curved claw. I felt cold, not startled, not scared. Cold, deep in my chest, like my body recognized something my brain refused to process. I flipped through more files. Subject S9, Subject S12, Subject R3, all similar, all described with clinical detachment, all photographed in various states of containment, strapped, sedated, dissected, but the dates bothered me. The earliest file I found was from 1947, the Roswell year. That made sense. Crash retrieval. Extraterrestrial biological entities. The story everyone knows. But then I found a file dated 1929, then 1918, then 1887. My hands started shaking. These things had been here long before Roswell. Long before Area 51 was even a concept. I kept digging. I found a document labeled Ophidian Protocol, Historical Contextualization. Eyes only. It was a timeline. 1547. Spanish conquistadors report serpent men encountered in subterranean temples beneath Tenochtitlan, described as demons in scales who spoke without sound. 1703. British Royal Navy captain's log references strange figures observed on remote Pacific island, scaled skin, eyes like dragons, move with unnatural speed. 1823. Expedition into the American Southwest reports entire ancestral pueblo and settlement abandoned. Wall carvings depict tall beings with reptilian features descending into the earth. 1899. U.S. cavalry unit dispatched to investigate reports of lizard people near Death Valley. No survivors. Site quarantined. The list went on. Dozens of encounters. Hundreds of years. All suppressed. All erased from public record. Then came the note at the bottom of the page, handwritten in blue ink. Recommendation: redesignate Ophidian entities as extraterrestrial origin for public narrative control. Actual origin remains terrestrial. They were here first. I sat back in my chair. The fluorescent light above me flickered. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. They weren't aliens. They were from here, and we'd been lying about it for over a century. I should have stopped reading. I should have closed the file, logged out, gone home, and pretended I'd never seen it. But I didn't, because the next document in the stack was a personnel transfer order, dated 6 days ago, transferring me to Sublevel 12. I hadn't requested a transfer. I hadn't even known there was a Sublevel 12. I looked up at the ceiling. Somewhere above me, the Nevada desert stretched out under the stars. Somewhere below me, there were more levels, more secrets, more of them. The ventilation hummed, and for the first time, I realized it didn't sound mechanical. It sounded like breathing. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my quarters, a narrow concrete box with a cot, a sink, and a mirror bolted to the wall, and stared at the transfer order. Sublevel 12. Report time, 6 o'clock. Authorization, Tier 5 clearance required. I didn't have Tier 5 clearance. I had Tier 3. That was high enough to read about black-budget aircraft and foreign espionage operations. Tier 5 was reserved for people who made decisions I'd never be briefed on. And yet, someone had transferred me. Someone wanted me down there. I thought about running, requesting reassignment, faking an illness, anything, but I knew how it worked. You don't say no to a transfer at Area 51. You don't ask questions. You follow orders, or you disappear into an administrative black hole and spend the rest of your career filing reports in some basement in Virginia. So I went. At 5:45, I stood in front of the elevator bank on Sublevel 7. There were 3 elevators. The first 2 went up to sublevels 1 through 6. The third elevator had no call button, just a card reader and a biometric scanner. I swiped my badge. The scanner blinked red. Then, after a long pause, it turned green. The doors opened. The elevator interior was different. No stainless steel. No panel of buttons. Just black walls, a single overhead light, and a touchscreen display that read, Sublevel 12. Authorized personnel only. I stepped inside. The doors closed. The elevator descended, and kept descending. I counted the seconds. 30, 60, 90. We were going deep, deeper than I thought possible. The air pressure changed. My ears popped. I swallowed hard, trying to equalize, but the sensation didn't go away. It felt like the walls were pressing in. At 2 minutes and 14 seconds, the elevator stopped. The doors opened. The smell hit me first. Metallic, organic, like blood and copper, and something else I couldn't name. It wasn't rot. It wasn't decay. It was alive. I stepped out into a corridor. The walls were smooth, polished concrete. The lighting was dim, recessed fixtures that cast long shadows. There were no windows, no doors, just a single hallway stretching forward into darkness. And at the far end, a figure, tall, motionless, watching me. I froze. My hand instinctively moved toward my sidearm, but I wasn't armed. Personnel below Sublevel 6 weren't permitted weapons. Security protocol, they'd said during orientation. Now I understood why. The figure didn't move. I took a step forward, then another. As I got closer, I realized it wasn't person. It was a statue, carved from black stone, smooth, detailed, humanoid, but not human. It stood 7 feet tall. Its body was lean, muscular, covered in carved scales. Its head was elongated, reptilian. The eyes were hollow sockets, but somehow they still seemed to stare. There was an inscription at its base, etched in a language I didn't recognize. Beneath that, a small brass plaque in English, "They who walked before." My mouth went dry. I turned and walked past it, deeper into the corridor. The hallway opened into a large chamber, and that's when I saw them. Not statues, enclosures, glass walls, reinforced steel frames, each one the size of a small room, and inside, figures, scaled, reptilian, alive. They stood motionless, heads slightly tilted, watching me with eyes that reflected the dim light like mirrors. One of them pressed a clawed hand against the glass. Slowly, deliberately. Its mouth didn't move, but I heard it anyway. Not with my ears. In my head, a voice like wind through a canyon. Welcome home. End of part 1. Word count 1,654. Part 2. I stumbled backward. My boot caught on something, a ridge in the floor, and I went down hard. My palm slapped concrete. Pain shot my wrists. But I didn't take my eyes off the enclosure. The creature hadn't moved. Its hand was still pressed against the glass. Claws splayed. Its head tilted slowly, like a bird studying an insect. Its eyes were gold. Not yellow. Gold. Deep and reflective, with vertical slits that contracted as it focused on me. I tried to stand. My legs wouldn't cooperate. Behind me, I heard footsteps. First time's always hard. I twisted around. A man in a white lab coat stood at the corridor entrance. Mid-50s, graying hair, glasses, a laminated ID badge clipped to his chest. Dr. Nathan Burrell, Xenobiological Research, Tier 5. He looked calm. Too calm. "You're the new archivist," he said. Not a question. I nodded, still on the floor. He walked over and offered his hand. I took it. He pulled me up with surprising strength. "They don't usually react to new personnel," Burrell said, glancing at the enclosure. "You must have caught his attention." "What?" My voice cracked. I swallowed and tried again. "What is that thing?" Burrell smiled faintly. "That's Subject S2, one of the oldest. We've had him since 1948. 75 years. I whispered. 78. Burrell corrected. "But who's counting?" He gestured for me to follow him. I didn't move at first. My body felt disconnected, like I was watching myself from somewhere else. Burrell glanced back. "You coming? Or do you want to stay here and stare?" I forced my legs to move. We walked deeper into the chamber. There were more enclosures, 12 in total, arranged in a semicircle. Each one held a creature. Some stood, some sat. One was lying on its side, perfectly still, eyes half closed. They all watched us. "We call them Ophidians," Burrell said. "Classified designation. S-class biological entities. Public terminology, when necessary, is extraterrestrial biological entities. But you've already figured out that a lie." I stopped walking. "They're not aliens." "No, they're from here." Burrell nodded. "As far as we can determine, yes. They've been on Earth longer than we have. Possibly millions of years. Possibly longer. That's impossible." "Is it?" He turned to face me fully. "Humans have been around for 200,000 years. Modern civilization? 6,000. We think we own this planet because we built cities and satellites. But we're new. These things." He gestured to the enclosures. "They were already ancient when our ancestors were, learning to make fire." I looked at the creatures. They didn't move, didn't blink, just watched. "What do they want?" I asked. Burrell's smile faded. "That's the question, isn't it?" He led me to a workstation, metal desk, 3 monitors, stacks of files. He pulled out a chair and sat. I remained standing. He tapped a keyboard. One of the monitors flickered to life, showing surveillance footage from inside an enclosure. Subject S2, the same one that had touched the glass. It was sitting cross-legged on the floor, head bowed. Its hands moved in slow, deliberate patterns, gestures that looked almost ritualistic. They do this for hours, Varel said. We've tried to decode it. Language, mathematics, communication. Nothing fits. It's not for us. Then who's it for? Varel didn't answer. He switched the monitor to a different feed. This one showed a different enclosure. Two Ophidians stood facing each other, completely still. Their eyes were locked. They don't speak, Varel said. Not verbally, but they communicate. We've measured electromagnetic fluctuations in the air around them when they interact. Low-frequency pulses, almost like brain waves. Telepathy, I said. We don't use that word here. But yes, I felt cold again, that same deep chill from the night before. How long have you known? I asked. About them? Varel leaned back in his chair. Officially, since 1947. Roswell wasn't a weather balloon, and it wasn't a flying saucer. It was a retrieval operation, but not from a crash site, from a cavern. 30 miles south of the debris field, there was a cave system. Local ranchers had reported strange lights and sounds. The military went in and found them. 6 of them, alive, dormant, sitting in a chamber carved from solid rock. The walls were covered in symbols, pictographs, geometric patterns, things we still haven't fully translated. And at the center of the chamber, there was a structure, a pillar, made of material we couldn't identify. It emitted a low-frequency hum. When they brought the Ophidians to the surface, the pillar stopped humming. He paused. 3 days later, the first nuclear test at Trinity Site malfunctioned. No explosion, just a pulse. An electromagnetic wave that knocked out every piece of equipment within 20 miles. We covered it up, blamed it on technical failure. But we knew. Knew what? Varel looked at me. His expression was unreadable. That they could interact with our technology, remotely, without touching it. My chest tightened. You're saying they can control. We don't know what they can control, Varel interrupted. That's why they're here. That's why we study them. That's why this place exists. He stood and walked to the nearest enclosure, pressed his hand against the glass. The Ophidian inside didn't react. We've kept them contained for 78 years, Varel said quietly. And in that time, they haven't aged, haven't tried to escape, haven't shown aggression. They just wait. For what? He turned to look at me. That's what you're here to find out. Varel gave me a security tablet and a list of files to review, personnel reports, incident logs, behavioral studies. I spent the next 6 hours reading. Most of it was technical, biological analyses, genetic sequencing, attempts to map their physiology. The results were disturbing. The Ophidians had no DNA, not in the way we understood it. Their cells contained a structure similar to nucleic acids, but the sequencing didn't match anything on Earth. It wasn't carbon-based. It wasn't silicon-based. It was something else entirely, something the reports referred to as proto-organic. One scientist had written in the margins of a report, "It's as if they exist in a state between life and non-life. Not dead, not alive, something older." I moved on to the incident logs. Most were mundane. Equipment malfunctions, personnel rotations, routine medical checks. But some entries stood out. July 12, 1963, incident report. Subject S. For observed standing motionless for 11 hours. At 3:42, all monitoring equipment in the facility simultaneously failed. Duration, for minutes. Upon restoration, Subject S. 4 was in the same position. No explanation found. October 9th, 1979, incident report. Personnel reported auditory hallucinations while working in proximity to Enclosure 7. Descriptions include whispering, hissing, and words in an unknown language. Psychological evaluations inconclusive. Staff rotated. March 3rd, 1991, incident report. Subject S. 2 made direct eye contact with Dr. Lawrence Haynes during routine observation. Dr. Haynes reported severe headache, nosebleed, and temporary memory loss. Subject remained motionless. Dr. Haynes reassigned. I looked up from the tablet. Across the room. Subject S. 2 was still sitting in the same position, hands moving in those slow, deliberate gestures. I thought about Dr. Haynes, wondered what he'd seen, what he'd felt, wondered if I'd be next. Varel returned an hour later. He was carrying a steel case, the kind used for transporting classified materials. He set it on the desk and opened it. Inside were 3 objects. The first was a small stone tablet, covered in carved symbols. The second was a metallic fragment, smooth and black, shaped like a shard of glass. The third was a photograph. I picked up the photograph. It showed a cave interior. The walls were covered in pictographs, figures with elongated heads and scaled bodies. In the center of the image was a humanoid figure, arms raised, surrounded by geometric patterns. This was taken in 1932, Varel said. New Mexico. A team of archaeologists stumbled on it. They were all dead within a week. Natural causes, according to the official report. And unofficially, radiation poisoning. But there was no radiation source, just a cave. He pointed to the metallic fragment. We found this embedded in the wall. It's not from Earth, or rather, it's not from our Earth. The molecular structure doesn't match anything in the periodic table. We think it's a beacon. A beacon for what? Varel didn't answer. Instead, he picked up the stone tablet. This was found in the same chamber where we retrieved the Ophidians. The symbols match others we found across the planet. Egypt, Peru, China, Cambodia. Everywhere there are ancient ruins, there are traces of them. He set the tablet down and looked at me. We didn't build Area 51 to study aliens. We built it around them. This entire facility is a containment structure, and we're not the first civilization to try. My mouth went dry. What happened to the others? Varel's face darkened. They disappeared. End of Part 2, word count. 1,651. Part 3. That night, I didn't go back to my quarters. I couldn't. I sat in the observation room on sublevel 12, watching the monitors. 12 screens, 12 enclosures, 12 creatures that shouldn't exist. They move sometimes. Slow, deliberate, never frantic, never hurried. One of them, Subject S7, stood at the glass for 20 minutes, staring directly at the camera. Its eyes didn't blink, didn't shift, just stared. I felt it, not with my eyes. Deeper, behind my sternum, a pressure, like something was pressing against the inside of my ribs. I looked away. When I looked back, S7 had turned around. The clock on the wall read 2:17. I'd been down here for 20 hours. My phone didn't work. No signal this deep. No connection to the surface. I was alone, except I wasn't. I heard it again. That voice, not spoken, not whispered. In my head, you are afraid. I spun around. The observation room was empty, but the pressure in my chest grew stronger. Good. Fear is clarity. I pressed my hands against my temples. My pulse hammered in my skull. Stop, I said aloud. My voice sounded small. The pressure eased. Slightly. I looked at the monitors. Subject S2 was standing now, facing the camera. Its hand pressed against the glass. The same position as before. Its mouth didn't move, but I heard it clearly. You have been chosen. Chosen for what? I whispered, to understand. The lights flickered. All 12 monitors went black. Then, one by one, they came back online. But the feeds had changed. The creatures were no longer in their enclosures. They were standing in a circle, in the same enclosure. That was impossible. Each enclosure was isolated, separate, sealed. I grabbed the security tablet and pulled up the facility schematics. All containment fields were active. All doors were locked. But on the screen, they stood together, facing inward, towards something in the center. I zoomed in, and my blood went cold. In the center of the circle was a man, lying on the ground, wearing a military uniform. Wearing my uniform, I looked down at myself. I was still dressed, still here. But on the screen, I was there too, lying motionless, eyes open, not breathing. I stood up so fast the chair toppled backward. The monitors flickered again. When they stabilized, the feeds were normal. The Ophidians were back in their separate enclosures. Alone. Still, I grabbed my jacket and ran. The elevator took forever. I jabbed the button repeatedly, chest heaving, sweat soaking through my shirt. When the doors finally opened, I threw myself inside and slammed my hand against the touchscreen. Sublevel 7. The elevator began to rise. I leaned against the wall, trying to breathe, trying to think. It wasn't real. It was a hallucination. Stress, sleep deprivation, psychological contamination from prolonged exposure. That's what I told myself. But I didn't believe it. The elevator stopped. The doors opened. I stepped out and froze. I wasn't on sublevel 7. I was in a corridor I'd never seen before. The walls were different. Not concrete. Stone. Rough-hewn. Ancient. The air smelled like earth and metal and something else. Something organic. Ahead, the corridor opened into a chamber. I should have turned around. Should have gotten back in the elevator. But I didn't. I walked forward. The chamber was massive. Circular. The walls were covered in carvings, symbols, pictographs, geometric patterns that seemed to shift and crawl in the dim light. At the center was a pillar. The same one Varel had described. It stood 15 feet tall, made of black stone that gleamed like polished obsidian. The surface was smooth, flawless, except for one feature. A handprint, carved into the stone at chest height. 5 fingers. Clawed. I walked closer. The air around the pillar vibrated. Not sound, not heat, something else. A frequency I could feel in my bones. I reached out. My hand hovered inches from the carved print, and then I heard them. All of them. A chorus of voices. Not words. Not language. Images. I saw a world covered in green. Endless forests. Vast oceans. Mountains that scraped the sky. I saw cities. Not human cities. Something older. Structures that rose from the earth like living things. Carved from stone and metal and materials I didn't recognize. I saw them. The Ophidians. Thousands of them. Tens of thousands. Walking, building, living, and then I saw fire. The sky split open, not metaphorically, literally. A wound in the atmosphere, bleeding light. The cities crumbled, the forests burned. The Ophidians descended into the earth, into caverns, into darkness, waiting, watching, for us. I gasped and pulled my hand back. The images vanished. The chamber was silent. I turned and ran. I found Varel in his office on sublevel 9. He was drinking coffee, reading a report. He looked up when I burst through the door. "You look like hell," he said calmly. "What did you do to me?" I demanded. He set down his mug. "Sit." "I'm not." "Sit." I sat. Varel leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. "You went to the pillar." It wasn't a question. I nodded. "And you touched it." "No, I almost—" "You got close enough," he interrupted. "That's all it takes. Proximity. Intent. The pillar doesn't care about physical contact. It reads you, your thoughts, your fears, your potential. What is it? We don't know. A communication device. A beacon. A conduit. Maybe all three. What we do know is that it's connected to them. And once you get close to it, they can see you. Really see you." "I saw things," I said. My voice was shaking. "A city? Fire. The end of—" "Their world," Varel finished. "Yes, that's the standard vision. Most people who get that far see the same thing. A cataclysm. An extinction event. The Ophidians retreating underground. How long ago? We don't know. Carbon dating doesn't work on their materials. Best estimate? 65 million years. Maybe more." I stared at him. "The dinosaurs." "Perhaps. Or perhaps the Ophidians were the dinosaurs. Evolution doesn't always move forward. Sometimes it moves down, into the earth, into waiting. Why are you telling me this?" Varel stood and walked to the window. It overlooked a fabrication bay. Workers in hazmat suits assembling something I couldn't identify. "Because you've been chosen," he said quietly. They don't show that vision to everyone, only to people they think will understand, only to people who can carry the knowledge. Chosen for what? He turned to face me, to help us figure out what they're waiting for. I didn't sleep for 3 days. I worked. I read files. I watched surveillance footage until my eyes burned. I found patterns. In 1952, 3 Ophidians had been moved to a separate containment facility in Nevada. 2 weeks later, a nearby military base experienced a mass hallucination event. 37 soldiers reported seeing figures in the desert that vanished when approached. In 1967, an Ophidian died in containment, the only recorded death. Its body was autopsied. The facility lost power for 6 hours. When power was restored, every file related to the autopsy had been erased. No backups, no copies. In 1983, an Ophidian was transferred to a research station in Antarctica. 6 months later, the station went dark. A rescue team found it abandoned. No bodies, no signs of struggle, just empty rooms and one message carved into a wall. They are awake. I brought the files to Varel. You're seeing it now, he said. Seeing what? The pattern. Every time we move them, something happens. Every time we try to study them too closely, reality bends. We're not containing them. We're irritating them. Then why keep them here? Varel's face was grim. Because the alternative is worse. What alternative? He pulled up a map on his computer. It showed the United States. Red dots marked locations across the country. Dozens of them. These are sites where we've detected the same electromagnetic signature as the pillar. Caverns. Underground structures. Places where the Ophidians used to live. Most are sealed. Some are monitored. A few are still active. He zoomed in on one location. Nevada, close to Area 51. This one is directly beneath us. My stomach dropped. How far down? 3 miles. Maybe more. We've never reached the bottom. And they're down there. We think so. Hundreds, maybe thousands. Dormant. Waiting. For what? Varel looked at me. For us to let them out. End of part 3. Word count. 1,658. Part 4. The nightmare started on day 4. I close my eyes and see the pillar, the carvings, the handprint, and then I'd see them, not in their enclosures, not restrained, walking, through hallways I recognized, through rooms I'd been in. They moved in silence, heads turning in unison, eyes tracking something I couldn't see. And in every dream, I was running, down corridors that stretched forever, through doors that led to more doors, trying to find the exit, trying to reach the surface. But I never made it, because at the end of every hallway, there was one of them, waiting, watching, and when I got close enough, it would tilt its head and speak, not with words, with certainty. You are already ours. I woke up screaming. My sheets were soaked. My hands were shaking. The clock read 4:33. I got dressed and went back to sublevel 12. Varel was already there. He didn't look surprised to see me. You're having the dreams, he said. I nodded. Everyone does, after prolonged exposure. It's not psychological. It's neural. They're imprinting on you, rewriting your perception. Can it be stopped? Yes, by leaving, by never coming back. And if I stay? Varel didn't answer. He handed me a file, thicker than the others, bound in red tape, stamped with a classification I'd never seen before. Umber black, director eyes only. You're not supposed to have this, I said. I'm not supposed to give it to you, but you're already compromised. Might as well know the truth. I opened the file. The first page was a personnel list. Names, dates, assignments, all crossed out in red ink. Deceased. 43 names. All researchers. All assigned to sublevel 12. All dead within 18 months of assignment. Jesus Christ. I whispered, keep reading. I turned the page. Project Ophidian Genesis. Final report. After 12 years of study, we have concluded that the S-class entities are not extraterrestrial in origin. They are terrestrial, indigenous to Earth, and predate modern human evolution by an estimated 60 to 70 million years. Further analysis suggests that the Ophidians did not evolve in the traditional sense. Their genetic structure appears artificially stabilized, as if locked in a permanent state. This implies deliberate engineering, though by whom or what remains unknown. Most disturbing, the Ophidians show no signs of aging, disease, or cellular decay. In the 75 years we have held them, they have not changed. They do not eat. They do not sleep. They simply wait. Behavioral studies indicate high intelligence, complex social structures, and advanced nonverbal communication. However, they have shown zero interest in escape, negotiation, or interaction with human personnel. Recommendation: cease all attempts at communication. Increase containment protocols. Do not engage. The report was signed by 3 directors. All 3 names were crossed out. Deceased. I closed the file. They killed them, I said. No, Varel said. They didn't kill anyone. Not directly. But proximity has consequences. The longer you're near them, the more your mind changes. You start seeing things, hearing things. Your perception of time distorts. Some people lose the ability to distinguish memory from reality. And I've been here 19 years. I'm still functional. Mostly. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. So what do we do? I asked. Varel leaned forward. There's a theory, not official, not in any report, but some of us believe it. Believe what? That the Ophidians aren't prisoners. They're observers. Area 51 wasn't built to contain them. It was built because they let us build it around them. They wanted to be here, close to us, watching. Watching what? Our progress, our evolution, our technology. Everything we do, they see. Every weapon we build, every war we fight, every step we take into space. They're cataloging it. Why? Varel's face was pale. Because they're waiting for us to reach a threshold, a point of development. And when we do, they'll act. Maybe, or maybe they'll just wake up. All of them. The ones beneath us. The ones buried around the world. And when they do, we'll understand. Understand what? That we were never the dominant species. We were just the latest. On day 7, I was called to a briefing on Sublevel 4. I didn't want to go. I wanted to request transfer, resignation, anything. But I went. The briefing room was small. 6 people. All high-ranking. All Tier 5. At the head of the table sat a man I'd never seen before. Gray suit. No insignia. No name tag. He looked at me with cold, calculating eyes. You're the archivist, he said. Yes, sir. You've been granted access to restricted materials. You've seen the Ophidians. You've interacted with the pillar. I didn't. You got close enough. That's interaction. He slid a folder across the table. I opened it. Inside was a single photograph. It showed me, standing in front of the pillar, my hand outstretched. But I didn't remember anyone taking a photo. We monitor everything, the man said. Every movement, every decision, every thought. You can't monitor thoughts. He smiled. We can when the Ophidians share them with us. My blood went cold. What do you mean? They've been communicating, not with words, with data, patterns, frequencies we can measure but not decode. And recently, the patterns have changed. They're more active, more focused. Focused on what? The man stood and walked to a monitor on the wall. He pressed a button. The screen showed live footage from Sublevel 12. All 12 Ophidians were standing, facing the cameras, in perfect synchronization. They're waiting for something, the man said, and we think it's you. End of Part 4, word count, 1,101. Part 5, I went back down, not because they ordered me to, because I had to know. The elevator ride felt longer this time, the air thicker. When the doors opened, the corridor was dark. The lights were off, all of them, but I could see. Faint bioluminescence lined the walls, not artificial, organic, like fungus, like something alive. I walked forward. The enclosures were open, all of them, empty. My heart slammed against my ribs. I spun around, searching for movement, for any sign, and then I saw them. They stood in the observation room. 12 figures, perfectly still, arranged in a circle, around the pillar. I hadn't seen them bring it down here, hadn't heard machinery, hadn't been briefed, but there it was, and they were worshiping it. No, not worshiping, communing. The pillar glowed faintly, pulsing with that same deep frequency I'd felt before. One of them turned. Subject S2. It looked at me, and I understood, not because it spoke, because I felt it. They had been here first, not as conquerors, not as invaders, as architects. They had shaped this world, guided its evolution, seeded its life, and then they had stepped back, watching, waiting for us to grow, to build, to reach the stars. And now we were close enough. S2 extended a hand, not in threat, in invitation. I took a step forward, then another. The pillar's hum grew louder, resonating in my chest, in my skull, in every cell of my body. I reached out. My fingers brushed the carved handprint, and the world exploded. I saw everything. The rise and fall of civilizations, the birth of stars, the death of galaxies. I saw humanity, small, fragile, clawing its way out of the dirt, and I saw them, always there, always watching, guiding us, shaping us, not out of malice, out of patience. We were the experiment, and they were the scientists. When I opened my eyes, I was on the floor. Varel was standing over me, shouting something I couldn't hear. The pillar was dark. The Ophidians were gone, back in their enclosures, sealed, contained. But I knew it was theater. They were never prisoners. They were never captives. They were custodians. And Area 51 wasn't built to contain them. It was built so they could contain us. I left 3 days later. Honorable discharge. Medical reasons. No questions asked. They gave me a debriefing. Told me everything I saw was classified. That I'd signed documents. That if I ever spoke, I'd disappear. I believe them. But I'm speaking now. Because you need to know. The reptilians at Area 51 were never prisoners. They were always here. They built the cage. And we walked into it willingly. Every satellite we launch. Every AI we create. Every step toward transcendence. They're watching, measuring, waiting for the moment we're ready. Or the moment we're not. I don't know which, but I know this. When the day comes, when the pillar hums again, when the earth cracks open and they rise, we won't be meeting aliens. We'll be meeting our makers. And they'll decide if the experiment was a success or a failure. So go ahead. Subscribe if you want. Share this story if it helps you sleep. But know this, they're already listening. They've always been listening. And when you close your eyes tonight and you feel that pressure in your chest, that cold certainty that you're not alone, you'll understand. You were never the one in control. You never were.